I'm Bruce Marsh, and I'm a painter, and we're in my studio, which is in Ruskin, and it's a studio where there's two parts to it. One part of the studio is where my wife paints, and we've been here about 20 years. And having the studio here where we live is just hugely important. And if I get impulse 11 o'clock at night, I walk into the studio and do whatever I need to do. Ruskin came about because Dolores was teaching at the Ringling School in Sarasota while I was still teaching at USF, which means this was halfway between. So that was a huge attraction that she could quit that long commute. An even more important attraction was that we're on this little Manatee River here, and the river is tidal. It's one of the few undammed rivers in Florida. So we see every kind of sea life here, dolphins and everything, and great fishing. And our west view is to a mangrove island, which will never be built on, and so it's like a permanent location on this river. Ruskin's a very rural community. It's been a very interesting place to live. It's small, it's rural, and we've really enjoyed it here. I'm best known for the landscape paintings, and I painted single landscapes for a great number of years. I began my painting career here in Florida as a young person, and my first works were all about issues in perception. And I was working with grids, I was working with multiple images, and so I was trying to make paintings where there was confusion about what was figure and what was ground. So you could look at the images in the grid, or you could look at the background, and they were very, very different places and images. And then I did variations of that for a number of years, up through the late 70s, when I suddenly discovered that I've been doing a great deal of landscape paintings in these multiple sort of pseudo collage paintings. And I thought maybe the landscape is what I want to work with. And so I did a few and then literally have been working primarily with single landscape since the early 80s. And a great deal of them has been involved with water. And with those, I felt that the water in some way echoed the physical facts of a painting. There was a surface, there was stuff underneath, there was stuff reflected above, that the water was, in a way, oddly, a metaphor for painting itself. Beginning in the 80s, Dolores and I would have a model in and had a few friends and spend evenings working from the figure. And I reestablished that in Ruskin and had a group here working from the model every one evening a week for the past 7 years. We did that. And I can't exactly say why it happened, but I would say that I think I was at an event one night, and it was out in a parking lot, the Chamber of Commerce, and artificially lit. And I thought this would make an incredible painting. So I did a small painting of that group. And then I did a couple other small paintings. I did one from a photograph in the Lower East Side, New York, and one from the roof of the Metropolitan Museum, all with groups of people. And it suddenly struck me that there were things there that I to this day can't really explain, but that really afforded a huge attraction for me. And I think it was about painting immediate surroundings, painting very ordinary people, ordinary places, and putting them into literally a version of a Renaissance space, where the space that the people are inhabiting is hugely important. And I've tried to do that in a way where there's not connotations of this is a famous place, or this is a picturesque place, or this is a place with some kind of history. I've used very ordinary places and ordinary people with the idea that if the painting is of interest, it's of interest because of the way it's painted and what has been achieved in terms of close observation and a building of a very synthetic space. The main character in these paintings is the space. It's a portrait of the place that's there, and the people are quite secondary. So sometimes I just happen on a place, and I have my phone in my pocket where I can make a often panoramic picture of the situation, or I'll set out. It occurred to me that the mall is a very pervasive, familiar place, and I'd try to make a painting from the mall. And so I spent a couple mornings at the mall here in Brandon, looking for the right situation, and finally it came along. I made the photograph and painted from that. I think of them a little bit as documentary paintings. There's a little bit about notations of middle-class life here in rural Florida, or semi-rural Florida. I think they may, a few years from now or many years from now, refer to the cultural conditions of life here, that we're a very wealthy culture, and we have these extraordinary places, be it an outdoor bar or be it a beautiful beach. In the process of painting these group pictures, I've always begun with a photograph that I make a very constant reference to, sometimes more than one photograph of a place. I grid the photograph and I grid the canvas, and then as carefully as I can, I draw all the elements of the photograph in the grid as accurately as I can before I begin painting. That's a difficult process. It's never wholly accurate. However many I do, I still struggle with that drawing. I think it's very important, that process of drawing it and presenting something that's come through my eye and my head and my hand, as opposed to projecting, for instance, using some mechanical method, of which there are plenty of mechanical methods to produce an image now, certainly. And I think that the thing of drawing it means that it's not perfect, but the aberrations, and I think the unexpected things that happen, really charge the painting or give it a kind of quality that would never happen from a mechanical reproduction or projection. And a very important part of that in the painting and in the drawing is, I think, the negative space, the space between things, is extremely important to pay attention to attend to. And if you're accurate with the negative space, the people fall into place, or the trees, or whatever. From my undergraduate days, the figure has been incredibly important to me as an adjunct to my work, even though I've done all this landscape stuff. And so these paintings without the figures would seem to me dead. They would be dead spaces. They might be, whatever sort of bad architectural renderings of failed buildings, or of ugly places, ugly spaces that aren't very interesting. The inside of an old firehouse where kids are building giant puppets. Well, the kids and the puppets are far more interesting by themselves even than the space. But to make the kids and the puppets alive, I've got to really pay attention to the space. Oh, I'm extremely pleased at the prospect of this exhibition. And I've been indulging in these group paintings for the past 4 or 5 years. And to show them all at once, it's the first time, this is literally the first time most of them will be shown. And so I look forward to it with immense pleasure and appreciation.